What the fuck is going on with the Democratic nomination?
It can be very overwhelming. So we're gonna break it down for you.
Casually, hence why we're sitting on a couch.
The first votes for the Democratic primary weren't even cast until a few weeks ago, but primary season began long before that.
Campaigns start planning for the primary a year ahead of time, and most of that is just strategizing to get the coveted 1,991 delegates needed to clinch the nomination. 1991, baby, my birth year, except it's not because I am 30.
So how does one get to the coveted 1,991 delegates?
Well, for the most part, it's just
math.
And a lot of it.
They need a majority of votes by June for the DemocraticNational Convention in July.
But Bryan, who the fuck are these delegates anyway?
So there are two types of delegates. There are unpledged superdelegates, we'll get to them later, and pledged delegates. Pledged delegates are the people's choice that represent them at the convention.
So basically they're like points that you rack up on your way to the nomination. Like becoming an influencer on the circle.
And not everyone can be Joey.
They can't.
Now here's where it gets weird. Each state gives a select number of delegates based on the results of their primary or caucus.
It's like in Whose Line Is It Anyway, where the points don't matter and Drew Carey does like a little jig at the end. The number of delegates that a state gives out can vary wildly. For example, California gives out 415 delegates, whereas the US territory of Guam gives out only 11.
Go Guam, I love it there. But it's not necessarily a winner-take-all situation. Just because a candidate gets the majority of the votes, that does not mean that they get to leave the state with all of them. Instead, most delegates are given out proportionally through a state's individual and usually extremely complicated system.
It's like if The Bachelor started giving out half roses and thorns. Like, for example, in New Hampshire, Bernie Sanders won with about 26% of the vote, with Pete Buttigieg behind him with 24%. But even though Pete Buttigieg got around 4,000 fewer votes, they both came out of the state with 9 delegates.
And here's the twist. You need at least 15% of the vote to walk out with any delegates at all. Otherwise, you come out with zilch.
Bye-bye. And get this, the early states that we've been spending so much time talking about, they don't even really have that many delegates. Iowa has 41 and New Hampshire has 24. Remember, you need 1,991 to win.
So why do we spend so much time focusing on two states that happened so early with such little power? I don't know.
It makes no sense. It's like if Peter brought his mom to meet all of the women on night one and it's like, Mom, we don't care about your opinion. Peter doesn't even know these girls' names yet. He hasn't even tried to kiss them yet. It makes no sense.
Alise, I think you watch too much Bachelor.
That's not possible.
And I know what you're thinking.
That Rihanna should release new music soon?
Yes, but also, with support so fragmented, what if no candidate gets to the coveted 1,991 delegates?
If no candidate gets the number of delegates necessary by the time we get to the convention in Milwaukee, we could have what's called a contested or brokered convention. Ooh, scary.
That's when superdelegates come in. What are superdelegates, you ask? In addition to the 3,979 pledged delegates that have to vote based on their state's primary or caucus, there are also 771 superdelegates, and they can vote for whoever the fuck they want.
Superdelegates are usually party officials, governors, and anyone who the Democrats consider to be a VIP. They used to be able to vote for whoever they want at the start of the convention.
But in 2020, superdelegates will only vote if it goes to a second ballot.
After the superdelegates vote, a candidate still needs a majority of all delegates. That's a total of 2,375 votes to win.
Contested conventions are extremely rare. And if party elites put someone at the top of the ticket who does not have the most pledged delegates, shit could get wild.
Like my 21st birthday party 9 years ago, because I'm 30. In any event, it's likely that we'll have a Democratic nominee by the end of the convention in July.
And whoever comes out on top of this shitstorm of democracy will have our vote.
Cheers to that.